I can't hear you, sir. You're cutting in and out there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there.
No.
I feel like we need to invest in some new microphones for.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll try it there. I put it on an angle.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we just did land acknowledgement. We'll open with a motion. Well, preamble, sorry, I'll have to get that too. Slow, please.
For transparency, I'd like to remind all participants and attendees that this meeting is being recorded in accordance with the municipality procedures. In the event of emergency, please exit quietly this room and use the main door.
All right. Resolution 2026-150. Be it resolved, this special council meeting comes to order at 6:02 p.m. Mayor Tapla, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Nakaji is absent, and Councillor Ryder is absent. All right, can I have a mover, please? Susan Hunter moves it. Seconder, Carmen Tozer. Second it. Any discussion opening the meeting? If not, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. The meeting is officially open. Everybody has the agenda in front of them. So we will move on to the review of the agenda. Please, Sloan.
Resolution 2026-151, be it resolved that the agenda be accepted as presented/amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Seconder, Susan Hunter seconds it. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? I don't see any, so we'll accept it as presented. No further discussion. Let's vote on it. All in favor? Opposed, carried. At this time. There's none, I see. If there's any during the meeting, please feel free to do so at that time. All right, we'll go on to number 4, report to memos. And this is to do with the 26th operating budget. And Joe, our treasurer, is online. You can hear me now, Joe?
Great, sir.
Okay, that sounds good. So with that, I guess we will just turn the floor right over to you, have some discussion with us.
Excellent. Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the chance just to present the operating budget this tonight for the 2026 year. You should all have the handouts in front of you. We'll take you through the slides, but I will share my screen and walk through them in order and kind of lead you through the handouts here tonight. Let me just get my slides up. Okay. All right, here. Okay, so everyone should be able to see my slide there. So I just wanted, before we dive into tonight too much into detail, I just wanted to clarify how I see my role as a treasurer to make sure that council understands the approach I'm taking and where I'm coming from. Essentially, my role as a treasurer is just to consolidate the financial information and give it to council so they can have clear, transparent information so they can make informed and accountable decisions. My role isn't to tell council what they're supposed to do. My role is just to come to council and say, hey, this is the reality that we have. Here are some options you could take. And then council has to have that discussion and say, we want to pursue option A, B, C, or ask me to take it back for more information, whatever the case may be. So really that's what I'm trying to do, is just give clear, consistent, accountable information. I realize in the past that this hasn't always happened. I think a lot of times we've had information where it was kind of in silos, one decision here, here, one decision here. So part of the conversation tonight is really trying to consolidate an aggregate of all previous sort of financial ongoing decisions to present one comprehensive summary. So council kind of has a bird's eye, 30,000 square foot, 30,000 foot in the air, as it were, view of our finances. So that's kind of the objective. That's where I'm coming from. In terms of the background of where we are, some of the challenges we have is just that we've never really had this kind of comprehensive strategy outlook before. A lot of our decisions are just made individually. Let's give this raise, let's start this program, let's pass this rate hike, but never the comprehensive look of what's the cumulative impact of all that things. Another big challenge we've had here at the town, as well, as far as I can see it, is that we have just a lot of late reporting on some of our financial information. So right now we're finalizing our 2024 financial audit. We should be finalizing 2025 right now. So sometimes putting us behind on our audit and some of our ministry reporting for gas tax and different funding requirements. That makes it a challenge to keep up to date with where the finances are when we don't have up to date financial information. So I have what I think is a very good picture of where we are, but I will also bookend that or give the caveat that there are some unknowns, because we're not fully up to date with all of our reporting and everything is not well documented. And I think some of that in the past was just we had a lot of turnover in staff, so things went missing between hands. That's bound to happen. And the other challenge too, as well, is I think we had different people handling the financial function. Sometimes the CEO had their hands in it, sometimes the treasurer had their hands in it, sometimes public works had their hands in it. So then it's kind of, where is the information? So trying to just bring that all together in one central place. So the record keeping, key staff turnover, and then slow invoicing from some of our suppliers. We've had suppliers that sent us bills in the month of May for last year. So it's tough to get a reflection of where we were at the end of 2025 when we don't have all of 2025 expenses coming in until 5-6 months later. So that's just kind of the background of where I see some of the challenges that we're facing as a town. I'm sure most of this is not new to anyone on council, because you've all been here much longer than me. So the first thing I wanted to look at before we get into our actual budget is just cash. I know often people will say, don't we have a lot of money in the bank? We have a lot of money in the bank. Why don't we just use the money in the bank? So I want to walk through what's the money in the bank we have and how it's all really earmarked or allocated for existing projects. So starting at December 31st, 2025, at the end of the year, we had almost $10 million in our bank account, $9.6 million, with some very large unpaid receivables, $1 million with Waha and $300,000 with Pomerleau. Now, since then, I've engaged the conversation and Pomerleau has paid this off, so they're current. Waha, we're still having ongoing conversations of what kind of documentation they need to pay these bills. Those conversations are going on. But assuming those bills are all paid, that would bring our balance at the end of last year to just over $11 million. Now, as you see from the committed spending list, we've committed to spending the lion's share of this money already. It's just been a reality that we've had turnover in staff, so projects have delayed, and now that we actually have a full complement of people doing their roles, stuff's happening, money's being spent. And very soon, within the next year or so, the majority of this $11 million will be gone. We will not have this money because we're doing a lot of projects. So the committed spending, fire truck. Right now we have one fire truck. That is a huge risk for a town of our geographic location, because we can't call a neighbor to drive down the road with their fire truck and help us put a fire. So if the engine were ever to fail, or even a flat tire was to happen and a fire happened while that truck was inoperable, we literally couldn't put out the fire. And we'd be calling Minister of Natural Resources to do some kind of helicopter situation. So we council previously committed to this every 10 years, looking at replacing tankers. We're on that schedule as of 2024. We should have bought the next tanker. So we're now 2 years behind on that. So Steve is looking at used, new, but somewhere in this 800,000 range, a fire truck needs to be bought. We have money that is received for the building permits, but those are going to be used to offset future operating budgets, specifically for building related costs. So we can't use that money now. It's only for building operating costs. The airport project that we're looking to do with the lighting project to get them off the runway, as it were. There, I had some initial conversations with WSP. They talked about some technical things that we actually need to have, and there will be a presentation tomorrow night by Trevor at the airport to really speak to the technical nature of what the reports are. But some just the layout of the lighting, geotechnical of the map and the landscape, the topography, etc. There's a bunch of stuff we're supposed to have as an airport. We don't have it. Did we lose it as a town? Did it not get handed off to us when the feds who gave us the town previously handed it off to us? Unclear, but we don't have it. And so WSP is saying we can't get this lighting project started without this documentation that every other airport has. To do that, it's going to cost you almost 200 grand just to get that paperwork. And you can't even start your lighting project because this is a basic foundational building blocks that we would build that upon. So we need to spend that. We've got about 600,000 in gas tax funding, which we're going to use towards part of the wastewater on Wobbin Road project. The COVID-19 project, which we started, we did some work in the fitness center and we started some bathroom renovations and some AC units. The AC units and whatnot are finished. The bathroom renovation is like half done. And there hasn't been real progress with this contractor in many years. So we're looking at pursuing potential legal action and trying to work that out without having to go that full nature with that contractor, but we may have to pay another contractor to finish this work is the reality of where we're at. So there's a cost there. We had a final payment for a project they were doing for the wastewater we did on 2nd Street and Bay Road. That bill just came in this year. So that would have been after December 31st, 2025. Now we're actually going to be doing the Wobbin Road major project. It's about $5 million. So this is partly done through the ISEP Green grant, and also partly you'll see here through the IO loan that we took years ago, and also the OSIF funding. The three of these things together are what make up the $5.1 million that we're doing for the Wobbin Road. And council had wisely passed the resolution that while we're already digging in the ground and we're doing the water, let's do the wastewater. We're already underground, let's do them both at the same time. So that's 5.1 million that we're going to spend on that Wobbin Road project. With that Wobbin Road project, the previous CAO had some cost estimates that were a little bit inaccurate. The actual cost of that project is 1.7 million, and we actually have 1.6 million in funding. So there's a shortfall of about $130,000, just because the previous CEO had kind of rounded up some numbers here or there. So we have to recognize that when we actually do that, we'll be spending about 130 grand more than she had previously presented to council. We've got the economic development strategy. That was passed by council last year for $100,000. The previous CEO actually went and entered a contract for $120,000. I've since reached out to that developer and said, can we bring this price down to $100,000? Council did not actually approve $120,000. We don't have the funding for $120,000. And so I was able to negotiate them back down to the budget that council had approved, but that was actually passed by this previous CEO at 120. So even now that we're back to the 100,000 level, there's 100,000 plus HST we're going to spend there. This is a final bill from our rural and northern grant that we just paid this year, $400,000. The triplex, council approved completing the triplex. The cost is going to be 600,000, may even be higher than that, but should be around that figure. So 600,000 to build the triplex. We've got the municipal road capping project we do. We just got that bill in from InLink, $340,000 for the road capping for last year. And then there was a large $1 million bill that came in very late from InLink from last year's. And that was for the dog pound, for roads capping, a number of services. The reason I highlight that is just because it was related to 2025, but the bill didn't come in and get paid until May 2026. And then the last thing is town hall needs a new door on the back door, and that's about $11,000. So when we do all the things that council's already committed to doing, we're going to have about $500,000 in our bank account, down from the 11 million that we have. So you see the reality of we have so much money is not true. We've already committed to spending it all. It's all gone. Just give it a few months. It will all be out the door. Now, that is not our final ending balance though. A number of these grants were eligible to claim back the reimbursement of those expenses. So this next section talks about the eligible grant funding that we can still claim to get reimbursed from those projects. And so I itemize those amounts there once we've done all that claiming. And also when we've applied from a loan for the triplex, which council has said they wanted to do, then our bank balance will actually be at a more healthy $4.7 million. So not as bad as that 400,000 was 20 seconds ago, but the reality is we're nowhere near the 11 million. We're down to about 4.7. So I really clearly want to just bring this first piece to council. Maybe I'll pause now in case there's any questions. I know I'm just kind of going nonstop and I want to make sure everyone has a chance to speak here. But just one, before we get into the 2026 operating budget, this is the reality of the funding we have in our bank, the items we've committed to doing, and the actual balance we'll have in our account when all the dust settles, about $4.7 million. So I'll pause there and let council raise any questions or input they have for comments at this time before I continue on. Sorry, I didn't catch you there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no questions. He just said he has a lot more acknowledgement with the papers in front of us, which we never had before with breakdown like this.
Good. And that's why I see my role to be, so this is consistently available information for council.
Can you hear me, Joel?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't have any questions at the moment, but I just wanted to tell you I do appreciate it written out like this because it really makes sense. And before it was all just, you know, a lot of numbers that we didn't really know what was going where and all of that. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Good, good. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions, Joel. We've gone through some of this already before, and so I'm quite happy and glad that you have any paper in front of me as well. So thank you.
Good, good. Yeah, I recognize it's hard. Like even as a numbers guy myself, it's hard to make decisions when you have 6, 7, a dozen numbers coming at you. You just need to see it laid out in front of you to see the cumulative impact of all the decisions. Okay, so now, with that 4.7 million, then the question becomes, just like you would as your own personal family, you wouldn't leave your bank account at $1, or I pray you don't leave $1 in your personal checking account. You have some kind of safe buffer where you say, as a family, we need 1,000 or 5,000, whatever your threshold is, to feel comfortable, just to always have as an operating budget. So my paycheck comes in, my mortgage goes out, but I just need like that general cash flow. So looking at like, what does a town of our side need, and really having good conversations with MMMH about this, and they said, you know, given their knowledge of municipalities and their knowledge of firsthand Moosonee, my contacts there at MMH said, listen, really, you should have $1 million in your town bank account and $1 million in your airport bank account at all times. And that just allows you to flow projects in and out and never really be in jeopardy of, did we get paid on that receivable? Will we be able to pay staff? Will we be able to pay the hydro bill? Will we be able to pay for Viola? You just need to have that base balance of $1 million. So in your head, you really should be saying, if we're below $2 million, that's the 0 point for a town. We don't have money. Now we're actually getting into a timing issue, whereas like, I pray we get the money in before it goes out kind of problem. So taking that base 2 million off, what do we have as a town to play with right now? 2.7 million. That's the extra that we can throw at a project. That's where we can overspend on our budget and we're okay. Once we get through that 2.7 million, now we're eating into that base minimal level of balance we should have in our bank account. So with that understanding kind of where we are financially, big picture, I feel comfortable diving into this specific operating budget for this year.
Wayne?
Yes.
I just want to say this, 1 million for the MMAH ones, that's our reserve, we call it, right? And the airport is a reserve of 1 million, is that correct?
Yes, that's the balance we should have, whether it's specifically earmarked in a reserve or just it's just the balance in your checking account. What they're saying is that just you should never let your bank balance go below this amount. If it is, then you'll literally have problems of, I hope that who owes us money, like the property taxers, paid us before I have to pay my bills out, or I could literally run out of money. This is a cash flow timing issue you could run into.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that is I want councilors here. Shelley and I have been in a spot that we make payroll. We were hoping we'd get the revenues coming in that people owed us in order to make payroll, because there were times that we couldn't make payroll if we hadn't got that money, and we were really pushing to get. So, because there was no reserves back then.
Yeah, Shelly and I had a conversation about it as well, where she talked about little timing of like, I have to run and get this check to the bank so I can then pay those bills shortly thereafter. And that's just a panic situation you don't want to be in a town, because literally not being able to pay staff, not being able to pay Viola, not be able to keep the lights on. But there's also other opportunities you'll miss out. Like there could be grant funding where they say, you know, we'll give you $1 million, but you've got to throw in 200,000. If you don't have this base minimum of $1 million, you can't throw the 200,000 at that project. Now you lose the funding from the feds and you're throwing away $800,000 as it might be. So you always want to have the money available so you can strike when the iron's hot and the funding's available, and not leave yourself so tight on cash that you miss out on those funding opportunities.
So, sorry. So basically what you're saying is, until we get the third column here, eligible grant funding still playing, We're actually not in that position right now.
Well, we are as of December 31st, because again, December 31st, we've got $11 million in the bank. But what's going to happen over the next year is we're going to start running into that problem. Basically, once the Woburn Road project is done, which is going to be October 31st, we're going to get very close to that issue of, do we have enough money in our bank to pay our bills? But, now if we hold off on buying the fire truck for 6 months or a year, then you've got $800,000 sitting there. But if you were to go and buy the fire truck today and get the airport lighting done today and Woburn Road done today, if all these things happen today, then yes, you'd run out of money until they refunded you back your money. Now, I will say, like, since I've already started, I've already submitted some grants for the town and already received some of that money coming in. So generally within 30 days, you'll get your money from the feds. They're not slow to pay, but there could be a cash flow timing issue. Depends how quickly we do these things. Yes. So a bit of a precarious place where you don't want to be. You want to be above that buffer zone, make sure you have a comfortable balance at all times. So right now, our comfort level that we have to play with is this extra 2.7 million is what we have to work with. Okay, so now looking at 2026 operating budget, I've broken it down first by the town and then by the airport and just by department. So whether it's the type of taxation we're doing, commercial, industrial, residential, or whether it's the type of department that we're looking at, cemetery, recreation, arena, etc. We've got our revenues on the left, our expenses on the right, and then that summarizes down to our total revenues for this year's operating budget, 6.3 million. And our total expenses for this year's budget, 6.9 million. So the town, without the airport added on, the town's operating budget this year is almost $600,000 overspent. Means we have expenditures greater than our revenues by about 600 grand. And I'll walk you through some of the high levels of what's changed year over year down below. But the operating budget, we are overspending by 600 grand. So maybe actually I'll just drop down to that right now just to show you, because that might be the next question you're going to have, is 2026 operating budget major drivers. What's changed? Of that 600 grand, here's 558, so pretty much all of it. And what departments have increased? So a lot of that is, there's a lot of stuff going on in roads. There's this 88,000 is to do with Viola, where the previous CEO was entering into negotiations with Viola. That's not been finalized. And Viola's taken the stance that when the new contract is finalized, then they would opt to pay some of the housing costs for those people. But Viola very much wants to have 3 operators, and that's not a budget that we just simply cannot afford. So Nara and I have been going back with them saying, can we cut this? Can we cut this? Can we get it down to 2 operators? But until that contract's finalized, we're paying about $88,000 a year in securing these rental properties for the Viola workers, which is part of the negotiations that Victoria was doing. And we don't have the contract signed where then Viola says, okay, now we'll start paying for the cost. And so will we recoup some of the costs this year? Maybe, but I don't want to promise you we will, when Viola's had a very hard stance to say, we had always written to her saying, and they have emails to prove it, when the contract was finalized, then we would pay the rent. The contract is not finalized, so we're not paying that rent. Now, hopefully we can, negotiate with them, but if they don't pay for the rent, that's 88 grand right there. Phelps, more of a one-time cost that's hitting our budget. We went to the recruitment agency to hire the treasurer and CAO roles. That's the cost there of looking to hire both those roles this year. And then we also had some people who maybe were in part-time roles in previous years because they came to join the town. And so last year's budget only had a part-time wage or a reduced wage for people in fire or people in animal control. And now we actually have full-time people in that role for the year. So it's a full-time wage. We need to get up to that full-time amount. Airports had a lot of repair to some of their equipment this year. They're 60,000 more than last year as well. So it's a combination of finally recruiting for a full complement of staff, having staff who are no longer on the books as part-time, being as full-time, the Phelps recruitment, the Viola wages, the airport equipment, and then some cost increases on dust control, et cetera. That's where the total budget driver is coming to increase as a town. Yes, so that's the itemized breakdown. If I scroll back up now, one thing I wanted to highlight for you as well is this right here. One of the first things I received when I joined the town was this massive document where basically the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Support Services Corporation is going through MPAC to say they want all their properties to be tax exempt. So this is the book that's all their properties across Ontario. So every municipality who has properties that are owned by the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Support Services Corporation, there is the risk they will get tax exempt status and not be taxable as a property tax. So that means as a town, I did the math, the value of their properties, we'd lose about $42,000 a year in property tax revenue from those properties. So if nothing changed at all across the board, we need to raise taxes to make up $42,000 we're losing in the property tax revenue from just those properties alone. I went and talked to MPAC when I was at the AMCTO conference. I said, can you give me any line of sight? Is this really going to happen? Are they going to lose this battle? And they said, we don't know. We really don't know. So I talked to some other municipalities and said, what are you doing? They said, we're going to play conservative and we're just going to assume, yes, they're going to be successful. Their properties will be exempt. So therefore, we're losing that tax dollars from that in perpetuity. So we're going to start budgeting right now that we don't have those properties at all. So I took that revenue out this year on the 2026, assuming that I won't get it at all from them. Maybe we get 6 months. Who knows? Maybe we get the full year, but that is another big reality there that I wanted to highlight for council.
If I can, if that was the case where they become property tax exempt, would we, but they're still continuing to use our municipal services, water, sewer, garbage pickup, so forth, would we not just then go into some type of service agreement with that organization?
Yeah, we would have to go into like a shared service agreement potentially. I just don't know whether that will yield the same total revenue as the property tax revenue, and how you math that out and say, what is the value of a garbage pickup? What is the value of it? How do you piece that out? So I'm just looking simply at, hey, I'm going to lose this property tax revenue. Council needs to be aware of it. But yes, there could be potentials for a shared service agreement there to recoup some of those costs. Yes. Yeah, my job. Sorry.
Just a little bit. Another thing I was a little bit curious about. I noticed that vending machine expenses is $25,000, but you're only estimating $12,000 in revenue. So if we're losing money on these vending machines, that'd be a good question for council, I guess.
Yes, I think that. Yeah, I think that was it was a good initiative that we tried, and I'll give Victoria credit that she tried to bring that in, but I think she overestimated how much revenue they'd bring in. Are they still a good value proposition? Yes. Is it worthwhile for the town to be embarking on that, or should we be looking at saying maybe we sell the machines to a third party and let them run it, just because it's a limited staff time, and that's part of the hassle and the headache there. The staff have to acquire this stuff rather than just dealing with a food services company and saying, hey, you already deal with the chips and the pops or whatever, you come stock it and just pay us a rental fee and we don't have to do anything. I think that's the better course for the town, because we don't have 30 machines to make it worthwhile. It's just pull someone off a soccer program and have them go stock chips. So it becomes very inefficient. And so then sometimes we lose out on the revenue. Oh, the machine sat empty on chips for 3 days because there wasn't somebody like maximizing the efficiency of the chip sales because they've got other things to do. And then they kind of go by once a week and, oh shoot, we're out of Red Bull. Oh, we're out of ketchup chips. I should restock. Versus a company, which is check it every day, they'd be very efficient with that. They'd maximize the revenue. So we're definitely not maximizing the revenue because we don't have the staff to do that, because we don't have enough staff to manage that extra revenue for us. But definitely something council should discuss. Yes. Okay, so yes, 600,000 expenditures greater than revenue. The airport is a little bit additional. They're about 11,000 expenses over revenue. So they're pretty much balanced. Not exactly, but pretty much. And a big part of that was they had some maintenance they're doing this year on a number of equipment that was 60,000 higher than last year, but they're basically balanced. So combined, we're looking at an operating budget right now. Total revenue, 7.6 million. Total expenses, 8.2 million. We're overspending by $600,000 this year as it stands. And the reality that we have there, I'm just going to walk you through what that looks like for us. So this is the operating budget summarized, and I tried to break it down, the total revenue expenses of 609,000, and then break that down for you. What's the water impact? What's the levy impact? What's the airport impact? So you can kind of see the three main areas as a council and how that breaks apart. Now, with this spreadsheet that I have here, the nice thing about this is if council says we want to pass a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% tax hike, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% water hike, I can just plug the numbers in here and show you in real time what that will look like in terms of the revenues we would get from that. But I'm going to assume right now, just to walk you through the situation where we are, and then I'll present my recommendation. If we do a 0% water hike, if we do a 0% tax hike, which we have for many years, if we do that, here's the reality. The reality, if we scroll down here, we have that extra 2.7 million to spend. Because we're overspending by 609,000, if we made no changes at all and kept this exact budget, we could do that for another 4.5 years. And in 4.5 years' time, we would run out of that 2.7 million. It would be fully spent, right? 600,000 times 4.5 is the $2.7 million, which means going back to December 31st, 2025, 4.5 years forward from that date is June 29th, 2030. If we make no tax hikes and no water hikes for the next 4.5 years, the town will run out of money June 29th, 2030. That's the day we have no money other than that 2 million minimum balance that we have to keep in our bank account. That's when we're down to saying, now I can't pay the bills, right? So it is something we need to address urgently. But it's something we also have years to figure out the problem and figure out how to address this. We're not going to come up with a solution tonight. It's more, I think, wanting to underscore for council the importance that we need to be passing tax hikes and water hikes every year. That's simply the reality of it. And if we don't, then the reality is we run out of money in 2030. And that's when really we lose the ability to make changes ourselves. And the province then takes over and says, okay, we'll provide the funding, just like they did for Fauquier Strickland last year. They came in and provided the funding. They said, but now we're going to dictate how you run your town. And they're going to say, lay off the staff, cancel this program, move garbage pickup to every other week, reduce the hours at the arena, whatever they recommend to get you down to balanced. So I present now to saying it's a problem. We need to address it. We can't solve it tonight, but we can take the first step tonight to say, okay, we can pass a 2, 3, 4, 5% tax hike, a 2, 3, 4, 5% water hike, whatever the case may be, to sort of plug this hole a bit and give us more breathing time. But that's the reality. If we do nothing, 2030, we run out of money. I'll pause there if council has any questions about that as I presented it so far.
We try to think our third, fourth year term, right? That would be 12, so probably 16 years ago. That's why they had, I forget the name of the company that came in to do an audit on our town. That's when they gave up the docks and they were going to give up the airport and everything, because we were in that situation. That was when we came in, Carmen, the first time we came in on, we had, I think it was 6 months or something to get a plan to come overcome that. That's where we'd be back in the same situation. They came in, they brought a company in to audit everything and look at how they could save. That's when they gave up the dock. Suggestion was give up the arena. The suggestion was make the quarry road a private road, give up the airport, all this kind of, there was a whole bunch of recommendations when we came into office 12 years ago, because they were in that situation. You keep going the same way we're doing, like what Joel is saying, and but 2030 we'll be back in the same place. We've got to get more revenue coming in, or we got to cut expenditures.
I think you got to do both.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Oh, I know last time we talked to the CAO about bringing in different ways, but I don't recall her ever doing that. So, I mean, I know we talk all the time about not raising taxes, but I mean, we asked specifically, or I asked specifically for different ways, right? And I think that's what Joe's presenting now, right? Is
Did we do 2% last year?
No reason, no.
no,
We did.
Only for the first 2 years, I think we came in, we did 1.5, 1.5.
Yeah, when I
And
first
we
came.
increased the water rate as well.
Yeah.
That was because we had that situation given to us.
But we didn't do it last year.
We haven't
I thought
done.
we had people, mad at us.
No, in December,
No, they threatening us to not do it.
I mentioned to you guys, looking at our variance report, that we're gonna be a shortfall if we don't do something, and there was discussion, Carmen, you're right, but, again, we had asked the CEO, help us.
I think I would suggest though, like, I'm okay with it, but we should have all councillors here.
Yeah.
Sure, to make that.
Make decisions.
And any tax rate hikes? Have that in place, yes, because it is a very, well, people don't like getting a bigger bill, right? And so we probably should all have that discussion together before making a decision.
Well,
The suggestion.
yeah, suggestion. But again, it's been, about 10 years that we haven't done any increase in taxes or any water.
That one, I think it was 1.5, no?
That was the very first year that we came into office 12 years ago. We haven't done any since.
Anything at all?
No, I don't think, not that I'm aware.
I thought we did one, since I've been here.
No, we were talking about it voted down.
It was either last year or the year before.
Yeah, we talked about it voted down.
Yeah, when I talked to Shelley, she had said we'd done like 0 for the last 10 years, other than it was 1 year we did a hike in there.
Yeah, I know we talked about it here, but it was voted down.
Yeah,
uh,
that's when she was coming back, right? We
Yeah.
asked for,
But we also quite a bit more money back then too.
I was suggesting, again, I mentioned to council about a small 1 or 1.5 each year rather than a bigger one.
yeah, we had that whole discussion.
Yeah, we had that for here in this room, and like I said, even for the 26th, the December's, variance report, I mentioned would be almost about 200,000 at that time, what I could estimate, and it would be a deficit. Or shortfall, I should say.
Yeah, to the mayor's point there, that is one thing that definitely I wanted to highlight as well. If I can pull my Excel back up for you here. These notes here, though it's not exactly apples to oranges because I'm saying tax and water hike, but if the math works of it, that's why I wanted to highlight it. If you did a 2% tax hike and a 2% water hike, that total amount of money you would generate would cover a 2% wage hike on the staff. So I look back at the last wage hike that we did for staff, it was much higher than 2% per year. And actually now the unions reached out to me just in the last week or so to say, hey, we're entering into collective agreement time now to redo another 3-year contract. If council's come back and say, let's do a 2, 3, 4, 5% tax hike. If we wanted tax hike, wage rate raise for staff, if we did a 2% raise for staff, we need a 2% tax and 2% water hike to just cover that. Nothing else, just the wage cost. If you added 1% more for inflation, you're looking at really every year, it should be a 3% water hike, a 3% tax hike to just cover 2% more for staff and a 1% for inflation, when really the inflation is, we all go to the grocery store, inflation is much more than 1%. But I just wanted to present that as one example for council to really chew their around in their mouth there for a bit and just understand that if you want a 2% tax hike and a 2% water hike, that will just cover a 2% raise for staff. And that's a reality we're coming at.
So what does that look like? Like, if it's a 2% tax hike, what does that mean, let's say for, I don't know, the average person?
Great
What
question.
would that look like? Yeah,
So-
like what would that look like for?
Yep. So I've got it right here. Impact on the typical taxpayer
Yeah.
for you. So this won't be on your spreadsheet, the sheets I gave you, because you have to tell me real time what you want to do. But you can see right here, I can put in, if I did a 2% tax hike, it tells you what you're going to bring in. That's $60,000 that the town would get. So your $600,000 shortfall becomes $549. What does that mean to the average person? If you had a house valued at these amounts, 139, 206, or 300, your taxes additionally for the year would be between 60 and 140 bucks for the year. So we're talking 5 to 10 bucks a month. A month, like 10, and that's if your house is in the 300,000 range, it's 10 bucks a month. It's nothing effectively to the average person. We're not talking 500 bucks or
Water.
1,000 bucks. So yes, a 2% tax like the average person is $5 to $10 a month more.
About the rate adjustments for this year?
Sorry, can you say again?
Have we heard anything from MPAC about rate adjustments this year?
No,
Like their property assessments?
yeah, continuing to hold the line. They've talked about revamping the whole system, to be honest. And I think actually some places where I used to work, Niagara Falls and Port Colborne, are actually part of a guinea pig test pilot program they're looking to roll out right now. But as of right now, across the province, no re-changing to any assessments. No.
They
Still
were
holding the
supposed to
line.
redo, they were supposed to redo the assessed value a few years ago, but I think they put that off on hold because of COVID, I think, what we
Yeah, I thought it was this year they were gonna try that though.
Yeah, they keep pushing it off. In the end, I don't really concern myself with the assessed values not being up to date. Um, in the end, it won't mean any more taxes for the town. It will just mean how fast is your house appreciated in value to your neighbors, and maybe their houses got fancier and nicer than yours, so they should pay a bit more. So of a $139 tax hike, maybe they should pay 150 and you should pay 120. Okay, the town still gets the same amount of money, but as the individual person, you might be saying, hey, I should only pay 120 bucks more tax. I'm paying 150. Unless there's been a dramatic change to your neighborhood where your house was 300,000 and now your neighbors are all 500,000, 600,000. Okay, then you are being paying way too much tax. But ultimately, it's a gamble of how fast has your house risen in value compared to your neighbors, and are you paying too much or too little relative to the combined changes in assessment values? It's yeah, there's no real hard and fast way, but as a town, it makes no difference. We'll still get the same amount of money. It's just how much will Peter pay or Susie pay and how it gets split between the individual taxpayers.
Is that the property values in our town have skyrocketed in the last 3 or 4 years for homes that even say 7 years ago were 150,000 are being sold for over 500,000. So that's always at the back of my mind that at some point these inflated numbers are going to turn around and bite us in the proverbial butt.
Yeah, so really and truly, like again, like if you had two houses that were worth $100,000 and now they're both worth $500,000, then they both would pay the exact same amount of taxes as they were before. Nothing's changed because it's all based upon how much is your house worth relative to all of your neighbors' houses. So the only way like you as an individual save money is if your house was 100 and it went to 200 and your neighbors was 100 and it went to 500, they've skyrocketed more than you have. They should pay more than you. Your tax bill will kind of come down a bit. Theirs will go up a bit because theirs have gone up much more than yours. But if all the houses have gone up or all the houses have gone down, the town will still get the same tax dollars across the board. It just kind of differentiates between each taxpayer what their share is a bit. Yes. So yeah.
Following you, I think I'll need like a workshop. I'm mixed up, a little bit mixed up. That's not the way I've been thinking about it. But maybe I'll need to revisit that and just look at it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that way either. I thought it was.
I thought it was our mill rate times the value that impact assesses the house at. That's how your property tax was determined.
It is, but we're also looking at council says, you know, Joel, I need you to get me $2 million in taxes. I say, okay, $2 million divided by the value of all the homes in the town. So if all the homes were worth 30 million combined, all the homes, you divide by 30 million, get a price like per dollar. And then I times it by how many dollars your house is worth. But if your house has gone up, like the numerator, so has the denominator of all the town's houses have gone up. So they both change. So the only way you gain as a taxpayer is if your house went up less than the average taxpayer's house went up. But as a town, because our denominator in that like fractional question there is also increasing, we don't get any more dollars. The only way we get more dollars is if we pass 2, 3, 4, 5. If the tax rate increases, then we'll get more dollars. If we kept it the same and just did the exact same tax rate, the values would math out to the same total dollars for the town.
Like I need a workshop now too. I'm like,
Sure.
what?
Yes, so we can walk through it, but suffice it to say, the impact values don't yield us more money. It just changes how much money is per taxpayer, how that's broken down. Which, as a taxpayer, like of course, you want a house, you want your house until the day you sell it, you want your house to be valued as low as possible, so you pay as low as possible taxes. The day you sell it, you want your house valued $1 million because you want to make money when you sell your house, obviously. But that's the individual taxpayer side. For us as council, like staff, it's irrelevant for us. But to your question, 2% tax hike, $300,000 home, it's we're talking $10 a month. So really, even though it sounds large, like a 4% tax hike, it's like, whoa, we had nothing last year. 4%, that's crazy, Joel. It's like, yeah, but it's $20 a month, $10 to $20 a month is what we're talking about in the house.
It's really just $20 a month, no? I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot when you break it down.
Yeah.
Well, I've been following other municipalities for the last 3 years. They were averaging between 3 and 4.5% increase in their taxes right across the province.
Yeah.
We haven't done any. And if you look when we get our audit done, we have them do a comparison with our tax, what we're paying here for taxes compared to other municipalities. And we were mid-range at one time. They also do it for expenditures. Okay, if you look at the last one we got when they did, we're actually going down. We're slipping to the lower end. Like everybody said, our taxes are way high, but if you look on that grid, we're right in mid-range, and they did 13 municipalities, small municipalities. But we're going the opposite way. Instead of going up, we're going down. And then our revenues, our expenditures was the biggest expenditures that we have here on that thing also is property and protection and recreation. When we get our auditors doing it, they do a comparison to 13 communities. Yeah, when you get your package, you look on that, there's the Pickle Lake, Smooth Rock Falls, Cochrane, all those. Years ago, we used to be higher end of the scales.
So I definitely appreciate, to Carmen's point there about wanting to have maybe all of council present before we pass a rate hike. The challenge that we do run into operationally as a town is summertime, council not being all available, vacation, whatnot, quorum sometimes being a challenge. And the reality that we have to get the property tax bills out for the next installments so people know what taxes they're going to pay. And we can't get those bills out until we know what rate hike we are passing or not passing on the property tax bills, which is why generally you should be doing your budget like in December, January, February of the year. You should be having that conversation so it's done, so it doesn't impact you for the actual operations of property taxes. So there is an issue of us getting this passed, calculated, applied to the system, bills out to people, and then giving them sufficient notice to pay their next installments, which typically are due, August and October. Some of those bills come due, and it's like, well, we're already the end of June here, so we're already up against a tight wall as it is. If council wants to push this back to the meeting, we can, but then that becomes an issue of can we get the bills out in time to bill people and give them sufficient notice to pay their bills as well. So that's the reason why I called the special meetings, that we just need to get this in. But I appreciate, to that point, I just wanted to give the counterbalance to just the operational side and the impacts of that as well. So while you think about that for just a moment, maybe I can just continue on and show you. So yes, to that little table I prepared here, we can put in any tax hike we want to put in, any water rate hike we want to put in, and it'll show you how the $600,000 shortfall is now a 485. And it shows you the kind of the difference we've been able to do. You just tell me what numbers you want to play with. The reason why I have 30 and 16 here is if you wanted to, in this 1 year, catch up and make the balanced budget perfectly balanced and not overspent at all, these are the numbers we have to pass. Absolutely impossible numbers. It's a 30% tax hike and a 16% water hike, which is completely impossible, like just catastrophic. But it's a combination of the years and years and years of zero tax hikes, and now saying, okay, now we need to catch all that up in 1 year. You literally have to do a 30 and a 16 and try to get yourself back to balance. It's just, there's no way. So I think the reality is here, we have to look at the fact that if we do nothing, 4.5 years from now, we're out of money as a town, we're bankrupt. So do we say, okay, let's start taking those first steps and let's pass a 2, 3, 4% water, 2, 3, 4% tax hike, just to have something moving. And then look at maybe when the new CEO comes on board, do we do an operational assessment? Are there some efficiencies from an operational standpoint where we can save some money? Are there other revenue sources we can do to generate? What can we do and develop a 1 or 2 year plan? But the first step, I think, is just saying, hey, we got to pass a 2, 3, 4% tax, 2, 3, 4% water hike to start moving the ball in the right direction. Yeah, so I'll leave that more for council to chew on and debate the actual number. The other thing I wanted to highlight for you, and then council maybe can discuss this more at length, is I've talked about the operational pressures right now, $600,000 overspending in the current year. As I've gotten more familiar with the role, each sort of rock I turn over, I find that there are other long-term, large financial pressures that are not a part of this operating budget at all, but are going to draw down the money we have in our bank account. So I wanted to highlight some of those for you. The airport lighting project, we got approved, I think it was 3 years ago for the lighting project money. Project never got off the ground. Now I'm here. We're trying to get it moving going forward. And in talking with WSP and talking with the ministry, there's no additional funding. We can't really go back to them and say, we delayed a project internally as a town, give us more money for that project. So now if there are inflation cost escalations over the last 3 years, the town's going to eat that. So when we were approved for $3.6 million for that lighting project, if there's even a 5% per year inflation on those airport goods and services, well, that would mean there's an extra $551,000 in expenses coming for that airport project, which there'd be no funding for, the town would have to pay. So that 2.7 million we have available, there could easily be a $500,000 bill for the airport lighting project coming due simply because we didn't do it 3 years ago when we got the funding and now costs have escalated. I've asked WSP, can you give me the cost escalations? I said, well, we really can't because there's documentation the airport's missing. We need the extra $176,000, which we'll go to council tomorrow to get that documentation. So we have that baseline who you are as an airport. So then we can then do our drawings, then get the actual quotes and tell you how much those lights will cost and what it will be. But we have to just face the reality, costs have gone up in the last 3 years. There's no way it's going to come in at the 3.6 million. It's going to come in at 4, 4.5, 5, and then we have to pressure the town as a town council to say there's an extra $500,000 or $1 million bill for that lighting project. That's just going to come straight off that 2.7 surplus that we have, which makes it even more pressing to increase our tax and water rates now because that 2.7 million slush could easily be a large chunk will go to the airport project. As well, we don't have officially like a cemetery per the BAO standards, Bereavement Authority of Ontario. What is the documentation and process to get that fully up to par, up to speed? I don't know. I'm putting a placeholder in here, 50,000. I'm hoping it's 10 or 20, but I want to realize there's a cemetery cost that is coming. Again, a one-time cost. As I've gone through the 2024 audit and trying to finalize that, there was a lot of back and forth with just documentation we needed from Trevor, and he had left the town, so trying to get a hold of him kind of put things in a bit of a delay there. But now as we're getting really close to the end, the auditors have asked me for some landfill closure costs, where eventually at one point you close your landfill and there's costs to do that. And so they say, we need the math and the number and we need all those reports and whatever, and we don't have those. So I reached out to the company who did them in the past. They said, we can get you caught up, but there's going to be a cost to get you caught up, and it's going to be 10 or 20,000 to get you caught up on all the reports that haven't been maintained over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Waha has pushed back on the bills we've been sending them. I think a lot of it is we paid a bill to somebody else. We then rebuild them. They just didn't think our description was detailed enough. Fair. So we're redoing our invoicing, providing much more detailed backup. I hope then that should alleviate the piece. And Waha says, okay, great. I see exactly why you're billing us. We pay those bills. But I anticipate there are some bills that they're going to push back on and not be willing to pay. And we might be out of pocket as a town. And just because of how massive that hospital project is, if there's even a 1 or 2 or 5% of the bills that Waha doesn't reimburse us for, that could be massive amounts of money to the town. Currently, we have 1.2 million in our outstanding receivable with them, and we haven't even billed them everything so far. And now we're into replacing, fixing lift stations, remodeling them. Maybe we have to hire someone to actually inspect all the work being done. If you're putting pipes in the ground and they're going under the ground, how do we know Waha is putting them at the right depth with the right size, diameter, piping, et cetera, et cetera? You need a project manager who works for the town to be there and say, yes, this is actually 8 feet below grade. That is the minimum requirement. Check, 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 check. This is up to code. So we don't 10 years from now have pipes bursting because they were only put 4 feet underground or whatever. So the town's going to hire someone to do that. Is Waha going to cover that full cost? Are they going to say, let your staff? So there is a risk that there could be costs that we would be out of pocket for. Again, outside of our operational budget, but a real reality because of how big that hospital project is. Viola, that's another massive one. We've been paying historically around $480,000 for the contract. The contract ended about a year ago. We haven't renewed the contract. They've proposed 3 operators for the water treatment plant at a total of $810,000. And I just said, no, there's no way we can go from 480 to 810. That's an extra $330,000 a year on our budget. So for now, I've estimated 575 in the 2026 operating budget. I put 575 as a placeholder and said, we're only going to go with 2 operators. Where does that land us? And they may come back and say, okay, that lands just 620, 550. I think it's going to be around the 6 mark, 575. So I've guessed 575 for now, but they might say, yeah, that's 680. Shoot. Okay. And then we either look to find a different water treatment operator at some point down the road, but that's a reality of an annual cost increase, right? And then that Ontario Aboriginal housing case I talked about, the annual revenue being lost, that is built into the budget. So I wanted to highlight these things because there are a lot of other large pressing issues that are going to have financial pressures on us. And some of them I know, some of them I'm guessing at, but quickly you can see 50, 20, 200, 500,000. When we have 2.7 million extra, this all could quickly disappear by these extra cost pressures. And if we're not passing rate hikes now for tax and water, I worry that 4.5 years becomes 3, 2.5, 2 years very quickly, depending on how these variables play out. And they're a bit unknown. They're a bit unknown, but they are there. They do exist. I just don't know how bad it's going to be. And so I just wanted to flag that of other pressing things that are coming down the pipe for us as well. So I'll pause there. That was just kind of the full presentation, walk you through what money do we have? What's our operating shortfall right now? My suggestion is a 3 or 4 tax and a 3 or 4 water hike, somewhere in there. Council has to come to terms of where they want to pass the resolution. And then also, what are the other future costs that are kind of hanging overhead that will eventually bite us? We just don't know how bad those things will potentially be. So I'll stop screen sharing and let council take the discussion from here, and then I'm happy to chime in with any questions they might have for me specifically.
I think Councilor with I'm just talking to Logan at the water plant, and I talked to Cornell before he left. Our chemicals in the last 3 years have tripled. Our price to get chemicals have tripled just at the water plant. That's just a chemical heating water. So it's hydro's gone up, gas has gone up, labor's gone up.
Yeah, but they want to almost double what they're gonna charge us. We can't afford that.
So we've already, I think I've sent you guys a copy, or I've talked to Joe and Tara about that.
I'm not averse to a tax. I generally haven't done any, but I think we all need to be here for that, to make that decision. Otherwise, we'll get tired of other, so to speak, being not transparent.
Yeah,
All of this
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, but to be like Joel said too, we have to be on time because 1 year was November and December, they got their tax bills. They weren't happy about that because.
Well, the conversation can be had though too about having another meeting,
Another
right? Like
special.
I know, or another, to address it, right? Like well,
Yeah, and we can-
everybody's gonna be here. And then we can talk about like moving forward with that. But I think, I agree with Carmen. Like, I think everybody should be here if we shouldn't be.
I agree too.
And I do understand how pressing it is. I mean, he just made it very clear.
Yeah, that's what I would like to share with council, and also, and just so to for timeline, so. And there's, well, someone's out until the 29th.
That's nice.
I leave on the 30th. Back on the 14th, I'm quite willing to meet during the day on the 30th or even the night of the 29th.
Are you
Do
available?
we ever meet in July?
Yeah, one meeting.
Yeah, you can drive, but I'm
I'm,
after the 14th, I can meet.
But we can call a special meeting at any time, you know,
what's the 30th? That's
That's
the
June 30th.
Tuesday.
It's the last Thursday of the month. That's Tuesday.
The only thing I would push for is I recognize that sometimes when you're on vacation, you have to do extra work and stuff, and that's fine. But I'm actually on vacation all of next week, 29th to the 3rd. So I prefer not to do a special council meeting when I'm on vacation, just because I'll be at a cottage. I don't know if I'll have Wi-Fi to chime in or anything. I will undoubtedly answer some emails and stuff while I'm on vacation. That's the nature of the beast. But to actually run a meeting like this, I don't know if I can make myself available next week.
go back,
The 14th. The 14th.
14th of July.
I'm back by then. I'm back on the 6th or the 7th.
Maybe Bob can reach out to all the councillors available.
For this.
Yeah, for this, their topic.
When our meeting gets.
You can decide tomorrow, right, at the regular meeting.
Keep the Tuesday.
Yeah, the 14th works on mine, no problem.
Okay, Susan?
Yep, that's good. I just know Joel heard you.
No, I didn't quite cut up the last sentence or two there. What was that again, sir?
The 14th, everybody will go ahead on plan. I think that might be one of our council meetings too. But if it isn't, we'll have a special and we'll have a motion drafted up, whenever we're going to do.
Sure. For the sake of council's time, if the two councilors who aren't here tonight want to meet with me ahead of that time, I can take them through kind of what we went through tonight. Or do we want to try to revisit those, like this entire conversation again in that meeting? And now it's going to duplicate another hour of all of your time to kind of revisit what we all just went through. If they want to, I'm agreeable to that. If they want to call me or meet with me during the week sometime, I could bring them up to speed on what they missed. Other than they, of course, could just watch the council. It's recorded as well, I guess, but.
If you could maybe contact Councilor Ryder and, Councilor Nackergy. See if you go through it with them.
Okay, I can do that.
That'd be okay, because it's not a council meeting, because there's only two of them. With three, then we'd have to have a council meeting.
Yeah, and even if they're two individual meetings too, or both together at the same time, just to bring them up to speed. Like I could just say, watch the hour council meeting, but this might be a little more friendly for them to walk them through it that way.
We're not breaking any rules or
No.
this information.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. All right, nothing else from councilors? Councilor Susan?
No.
Councilor Tozer? Well, thanks, Joel. It was a good thing, and I like seeing it on paper in front of me. You're doing a great job.
Thank
So,
you.
I guess you're attending the meeting tomorrow night, are you, or?
Yes, I've got a couple things I'm presenting that meeting as well, so we'll see you tomorrow night as well.
All right, then. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Joel.
Joel.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Resolution 2026-152, be resolved that this meeting adjourn at 7:05 p.m. Have a board, please. Susan. Second. Discussion on adjourning? If not, all in favor? Votes carried. Meeting is officially closed. Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. Coming out.
Oh, yes, I am running. I'm just sit there, you never have.